You're listening to a download from the outdoorstation.co.uk.
Number 318.
Hello everybody and welcome back to your favourite outdoors podcast. It may even be the only outdoors podcast, but we're here all the same, battling on to try and bring you a little bit more of entertainment and information about the outdoors world generally. Of course, all based around self-powered travel. Now, April the 1st is upon us. It's a few days away, and of course, spring has definitely sprung. The trees are budding, the sap is rising, and the sound of lawnmowers cutting the lawns are starting to appear everywhere in the neighbourhood. So obviously things are looking slightly brighter. The clocks of course have gone forward as well, which means we now have lighter mornings and lighter evenings. It's bizarre, it's a wonderful feeling, but the first one was last night, and I have to say yes, I felt like going out and doing something. How bizarre. Talking of which, I mentioned on the last podcast that I felt like a lightweight bivvy trip was upon me. And sure enough, a couple of weekends ago, I did it. I was joined by a buddy of mine, Ash, and we headed up to the Black Mountain in Wales for a bivvy bag night. And I'll tell you more about that trip and some of the gear we used and what happened a bit later on in this podcast. Now, what is on this podcast? Well, as usual, we've tried to make it a little bit of a smorgasbord for you, a wide range of interviews. We've got 3 interviews in this particular one, and we're going back to the Outdoors Leisure Show that was in the NEC at the end of February now. And we've got interviews that we picked up at that show. Well, let's kick off straight away. There's no point hanging around. Let's start with this. You may have witnessed in various disasters and major accident reports in the media in recent times the mountain rescue logo on the back of some of those workers involved, often miles away from a mountain. Andy Simpson is the press officer for Mountain Rescue England and Wales and team leader for Rossingdale and Pendle Mountain Rescue Team. And he explains just how diverse a role Mountain Rescue now has to fulfil.
Well, generally speaking, our remit has become a lot wider in that we don't just run up and down mountains rescuing mountaineers. It's become far more of a community service, and now we're potentially doing house calls and crampons when the weather's bad and the ambulance service can't cope. We're rescuing people from cars on snowbound roads. And we're usually first on scene if there's a serious flood anywhere.
So how has that come about? Has that been a conscious sort of area of action for you guys that you got involved in, or have the police been so short-staffed and desperate they've called you?
A combination. For searches and stuff, the police are stretched already, and when you need to put a lot of people on the ground at once, we can do that very quickly. They're all trained people, and from the police perspective, they can come along, give you a brief, leave you to it and go away, knowing that something's been done properly, as if their own officers were doing it. When it's come to things like flooding, we've responded recently to a couple of major incidents. There's Gloucester, South Yorkshire and Cockermouth in Cumbria. And we've found that our training hasn't quite hit the mark, but we've still sort of mucked in and got on with the job. Obviously, we've now tried from that experience to train people how they need to be trained, equip them properly. So we also provide a swift water and flood water response as well.
Obviously, getting trained up for flood water and the equipment you might need for it doesn't come out of thin air. How do you raise the funds for that and invest?
It really is simply from money that the public give to us. Very recently, like in the last couple of weeks, the government announced that there is money set aside to support mountain rescue teams. As yet, we don't know how much that is. Could be £4.20, could be £250,000, but we haven't actually got that yet. So what we do is just raise funds as you would expect any charity to do. Each team is self-funding. And then the training itself is provided by the central organisation, paid for by that organisation as again a self-funding charity.
So tell me about the structure of the teams themselves, because you were saying that there's actually 50 odd teams, but they're all actually independent charities. Is that correct?
They are. Yeah. There's nationally there's a central organisation, Mountain Rescue England and Wales, and each team is represented on that kind of board, if you like. below that, if you want, there's regional organisations, of which there are 9, and each team belongs to a regional organisation. And then the teams themselves, like you say, of which there are 56, they're independent charities who raise their own operational funding. Basically, what they collect this year is what they spend next year.
But I mean, you're fairly cost effective with your obviously investments. You were just saying that there isn't actually a main head office anywhere. It's individuals from the teams that pull together.
Yeah, we don't have staff as such. I mean, obviously people do jobs in each of these organisations, but there isn't a single paid member of staff in Mountain Rescue anywhere in the UK. They're all volunteers, and they obviously volunteer at team level, and then as well as that you'll have regional level, and then on top of that you've got your national level as well. But it's good because the further away you get from operations, it doesn't really matter, because if you're dealing on a national level, you're still actually working at the sharp end on a nasty snowy Wednesday night, and then perhaps talking to a government minister the day after, but representing all 56 teams. So it's useful to think that you know what you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously you're talking, or they're talking to somebody whose feet are well and truly on the ground, actually using the funds or applying the skills accordingly to save lives.
Yeah, I mean, it would be easy for a national organisation to lose a grip on what actually goes on a day-to-day basis, but I can sit and talk to somebody about the national organisation, and I know that my team has got no money. So if we can't raise funds for whatever that piece of kit is, chances are 2/3 of the rest of the teams can't either. So I can actually speak from a position of strength in understanding how hard it is to do the job.
Now, you've presumably been in this for some time.
I have since 93, I think, 1993.
And so over that period of time then, have you noticed a change in attitude towards the service, a sort of an ebb and flow of interest in shows like this and fundraising and the sort of donations that you get from people? Is it associated with something like the national weather pattern when we have the floods and so on, and people are suddenly aware of you, or generally do you find it fairly consistent that people are aware of you and contributing?
People's awareness of mountain rescue is a lot better now than it used to be. Their awareness of what we do, not simply mountain rescues, is getting better. What tends to happen is we get a lot of press around a big incident, such as the Cumbria floods or the Grey Rig train crash. Obviously you're getting television images beamed around the world, and half of those are people wearing mountain rescue uniforms. So people do become aware of what we do, and you will get an influx of money into local pots when people are conscious of us, but of course when it's quiet the income goes quiet as well, so you've got to work hard to get it in. Most teams will organise kind of sponsored events during the year, as well as rattling tins outside supermarkets, so it's kind of reasonably constant, but you get a boost when unfortunately there's an incident that causes us to go out there and be photographed by the press. You know.
I should imagine that most, if not all, listeners are fully aware of you, and obviously very grateful to know that you're there when we're out in the hills or doing whatever we're doing. But I'm not too sure if it's ever been made clear the type of people that you'd like to volunteer to actually come and give you some assistance in whatever format that might be. So is there a generalisation of the sort of the age range or skills or the type of person that you'd like to volunteer to assist you?
It's interesting because recruitment, some years ago, it was a problem. In the last couple of years it hasn't been, and I suspect it'll come round again full circle, and in the next couple of years teams will be looking for volunteers. In terms of who volunteers, teams usually look for reasonably seasoned mountaineers, because even if you're working with a team that's perhaps just got moorland and not many mountains, you could be bussed into wherever, anywhere in the country, so you've got to be able to look after yourself. In terms of age, team members range from 18 to 75. Normally, if you're 75, you've probably been in for quite some time. I think what tends to happen is people come in perhaps in the mid-30s. By then, they've got some experience of life in general. They've got some experience of the outdoors, and I think they're kind of looking for something to make a contribution to. And obviously mountain rescue is akin to their hobby, so they're quite happy to come in and do that and extend their hobby in that way. It's one of those jobs where if you come in, you're either in for 3 or 4 years or that's it.
Right.
You're in until you die.
Yeah.
So,
and I mean, what's presumably somebody comes in, or they've got lots of personal experience, but none of which is qualified. Do you put people through a steady progression of sort of courses and qualifications to get them up to the same level as everybody else on the team?
Yeah, normally a team member will come in. We will assume that they know very little. Obviously, the interview process gives you an idea of the kind of person that you're dealing with. But they will be taught rescue techniques, casualty handling, working with helicopters. Most civilians have never worked in or around either a police or ambulance or military helicopter, and they're quite dangerous machines. So it's fairly simple training, but it's things that you need to know. Navigation, it may well be that you can get from A to B quite happily for yourself, for your leisure. But if somebody actually says, right, I need you to go from point A to point B, I need to know how long it's going to take you to get there, and this is what I want you to take, you've got to be accurate with your answers. Because if there's a piece of kit with one person who can get there in 20 minutes and somebody else says 10, but actually they're wrong and it's taking them half an hour, the leadership is sending the wrong person in. So all these skills are taught. Usually it's a sort of 12 to 18 month process, and then you'll be asked to join the call-out list and actually go out on rescues.
So should anybody be interested in following that through, perhaps, and that's just raised their interest in joining, what's their first point of call? Where should they apply?
You would normally want to either live or work within a team's operational area for it to be relevant for you. And in order to find out which team it is, you can go onto the national website, which is www.mountain.rescue.org.uk, and all the teams are listed there. So the contact details are on teams' websites and the operational area as well, so you can actually see which bit of the country or which team is most suitable for you.
Anytime, any place, anywhere.
This is the Outdoor Station. 1 million listeners worldwide can't be wrong.
It's all about the great outdoors.
So Ash and I parked the car down by the, what's it called? Danigorf Caves, down at the base of the Black Mountain in Wales. And there's a little lay-by down there where a pub's being refurbished, so we left the car there. And we headed up on what was a beautiful Saturday. Very, very warm, crisp, but warm in the sunshine. And not much of a breeze, and headed up to up the path, up through the sort of the caves and the campsite there to the paths. Now, we hadn't seen each other for a couple of years, to be fair, and so chin-wagging was priority. But the second priority was I did take a video camera with me. I thought, right, this time I'll video the trip, especially as it's a bivvy bag trip, to give people an idea of what can be involved in camping out in a bivvy. Good idea, I thought. So we meandered on through the day, chatting as you do, and popping the camera down, doing some set-up shots, and walking to the left and walking to the right and whatever. Now, you've got to bear in mind that the Black Mountain really is, it's sort of my backyard in some respects. I've probably been down there half a dozen times. I've done an adventure race over it. I've taken the family down there, and we've done various other routes up and over it from different sides. So, one would think that I knew where I was going. Well, let me tell you, the mountain rescue thing did make me think. Let me tell you that there is, you know what it's like. You're distracted, you're catching up on family life and work history and what's going on and things. Anyway, we sort of got to a point where I looked over a ridge as we came over this climb, thinking, that shouldn't be there, as you do. And I found that we were temporarily misplaced. We knew where we were. We knew which mountain we were on. We just weren't in the place that we were supposed to be. So, consequently, the filming, which started off so wonderfully, and wonderful shots of us walking off into the deep blue sky, and close-up of footwear, and the gear we were carrying and wearing and so on, suddenly stopped because we realised we were about 3 miles away from where we should have been. And cutting a long story short, by the time we got over the top of the Black Mountain and dropped down to the loch, or the lake there rather, it was just getting dark. It was sort of 6:30ish, and that was obviously before the clocks changed. And the weather was changed from, well, obviously it'd been a beautiful sunny day, so clear blue skies, but it was still a clear sky, and it was going to be cold. And my goodness me, wasn't it cold? It was definitely sub-zero that night, and we woke up surrounded by the remnants of sleet sliding off our tarps. Now, what did we take with us? Well, as I say, it's a shame I haven't got the video completed, because the idea was that we would have sat down and discussed and shown some of the gear and how we were using it. But perhaps we'll have to do that some other time. But basically, we had a couple of bivvy bags. I had the Rab Ascent bivvy, which I wanted to give a good try out in cold conditions, and a microtarp, one of the backpacking light microtarps. And I gave Ash another microtarp, and he had the Alp Kit bivvy, and his PhD bag, and I had what did I have? I had a Marmot hydrogen bag, the sort of usual bits and bobs that went up to make a comfortable night, really. A bit of food, a bit of drink, some treats, some chocolate and whatever else. But it is a shame I can't show you, because there was a lot of stuff I took with me thinking people would like to see this. I used the new the new OMM Cypher smock, event smock, which is the lightest thing I think at the moment available, and suitably impressed with that. So that's definitely one for the wardrobe now. So, as much as I'd love to explain in great detail exactly what happened and so on, it's a bit difficult without pictures, particularly with the goods involved. But both of us got our base weights down to about 6.5 k, excluding food and water. And as we walked, we did discuss that perhaps we could possibly manage with that sort of equipment doing the TGO challenge, walking across Scotland. We had the same types of things. Same sort of emergency gear, same dry clothes, just not very much of it. But the small 25-litre packs that we had, 25, 30-litre packs, the only time they would struggle in something like a longer trip would have been, of course, when you put 3 or 4 days' worth of food in there. A, you need space, and B, the bulk and weight suddenly increases. So the video will have to wait for another time to share the joys of bivvying with you, and maybe I'll get that sorted fairly soon if I can. But let's get back to the outdoor show again. Now, obviously, out in the wilds there, when we all go out and you look for a base or perhaps an overnight to start with, a bed and breakfast is usually the first thing. The first thing is a campsite, obviously. Then the campsite moves on to bed and breakfast, particularly if you're with a partner who prefers a little bit more comfort. And then from bed and breakfast upwards, it gets into guest houses and pubs and whatever else, and sometimes can be a little bit on the expensive side. Well, at the outdoor show, I saw a stand I hadn't seen before, and something I hadn't been aware of, but I think would be of particular interest to our listeners, which is about farm stays, staying at farms. Barbara Palmer is liaison director at for the Heart of England area of Farmstay, and Farmstay website is farmstay.co.uk, which offers alternative accommodation, which, as I say, you may not automatically think of when planning hiking routes or touring bases for a UK-based holiday. So I went to speak to her and find out more about staying with farms.
We're here today because Farmstay's been the beneficiary of some funding under the RDPE, which is Rural Development Programme for England, to promote farm accommodation in the heart of England, which is what that logo says. So part of the budget for that is to attend shows like this, to reach out to new urban markets, and to introduce people to the benefits of farm stay and holidaying in the UK and everything that it has to offer.
So how does this then differ from, sort of traditional bed and breakfast promotion and a business, that type of thing? Well,
farm stay isn't actually a booking organisation. All the contact is with the owners directly, as we're a non-profit making consortium. Right. That was actually set up in 1983. Between a joint project with the NFU, which was to assist farms who were struggling to diversify. So all those years ago, it started with something like, I think it was 93 members, but I might be wrong. And this is what we are today. So we're a nationwide organisation all over the 4 countries of the UK.
And how many members do you have now then?
We've got just over 1,100 members with 1,350 properties.
That's fantastic. So, obviously our listeners are all sort of hikers, walkers, cyclists, that type of thing. Obviously some of them drive to their location before they use it as a base. So tell me all about Farmstay and why they should be really, spending their money and keep the money within the community, within the rural community.
Well, one of the things is obviously we are in the place where people want to go walking, hiking, doing outdoor activities. Everybody is unique. All the properties are inspected, so you can be guaranteed that you are getting a certain standard of accommodation within their star rating. We obviously have facilities like Argers, so if people have got wet clothes at the end of the day, we can hang them up over the Argers and get the boots dry and things like that. Safe parking, some of those obvious things that are actually very attractive to people. And of course the local information that people like farmers have about the area around them. Obviously for the bed and breakfast proprietors, a large part of what we do is the food, local, home produced and homemade and things like that, which is very attractive to people. And obviously also the self-catering providers have that kind of information at their hands. So it's an important part of staying local and supporting the local community and keeping the money turning around within the UK.
Well, yes, that's a very important thing at this moment in time, isn't it? And you were saying some of them have got campsites as well?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, we have a few members that have some CL sites or more full activities with caravan and camping shops, bunkhouses and lodges. There's a huge variety throughout the membership. So, and that's also very attractive to people because they're often not just doing the caravan and camping. They maybe have B&B and self-catering there as well. So there's quite a variety of things going on at the different places.
Well, I've walked past the stand a few times this morning and seen quite a diverse range of people obviously showing interest in this. So this has definitely given them another edge to their interest in the rural community. Have you had any sort of interesting questions or feedback from people that have come past?
Well, yeah, one of the big questions we get, especially from people who want to stay in self-catering places, is what about bringing the dog?
Right.
And a lot of our self-catering members will take dogs because obviously with the cost of kennelling, and the dog is part of the family. And despite the fact that, there are certain limitations because they might be on a working farm sometimes in terms of keeping the animal under control, they're very welcome. So that's a big plus factor for people. Especially with the self-catering members. And also they like the family-friendly attitude. I mean, as you can see, we've got the Shaun Sheep photo board there. We're very fortunate that Ardman approached Farmstay as a family-friendly organisation to do some joint promotions surrounding Shaun Sheep. So, and the kids, we have these terrific activity packs that the children can be given to use at the establishments, and they've got a couple of competitions in, and an origami Shaun and colouring sheet and a salt dough recipe and some quirky postcards that they can send off to their mates. So it's all there's a natural synergy between the two things. I mean, if you're really lucky, you can have your photo taken there for the family.
Right, okay, well, I should get myself ready for that one. So is there a generalisation? Have you had people, I mean, you've got a place yourself, I understand.
Yes.
Do you find that the sort of customers, the clientele you come through, is it predominantly families, young families, old families, want to get in touch with with the rural community, or is it independent travellers that just want something different?
We get absolutely everything, from families with children up to people who are visiting family, weddings, christenings, family parties. For instance, recently, I'm just from outside Bromsgrove, we had, it's been Snowdrop weekend last weekend, so there were lots of people coming around to go and look at places that open their gardens to show off the snowdrops and things like that. So it's hugely diverse, the reasons people come and stay with us, including business people.
Right.
So it's quite it's a good thing for business people because, of course, the safe parking at the B&Bs, and we're very good value for money.
That was going to be my next question. What sort of range of prices are we talking about?
Well, we've got everything from sort of small self-catering places that will just accommodate 2 people up to maybe a self-catering place that can accommodate 12 people that might be 5-star with outdoor hot tub. So, and there's everything, there's something for everybody in between. And the same goes for the bed and breakfast establishments. Right. That there are some simpler establishments that are offering a basic accommodation up to 5-star establishments who are giving you all the bells and whistles. Yeah. So there really is something in there for everybody. I
know that when people go to a certain area, they obviously type in guest house and they type in bed and breakfast into Google and whatever. Farm stay isn't necessarily the sort of first few words they would necessarily think to type in. If you've got coverage across the UK and Scotland as well, I can imagine there are a lot of people that are suddenly thinking that it's a great alternative to trying to find somewhere which have got established bed and breakfasts that have an established route of clientele going through, which are usually fully booked. Yeah. So it's a great facility for them to do that. And of course, you're going to have to give me the website address, which is?
It's www.farmstay.co.uk.
If you have any feedback, questions or suggestions, why not drop us a line, either on Facebook or directly to our email address, info@theoutdoorstation.co.uk.
Bringing you more about the outdoors world.
They're not exhibiting at the show, but I've just bumped into Sarah from Cicerone here. We usually have a good chat to them anyway, so we've just found ourselves a little place at the bar. And just to talk a bit about what Cicerone have done over the last year and where they're going over the next year or so. Now, the book that's impressed me, and I guess everybody else more than anything this year, has been the Chris Townsend Encyclopedic Bible of Scotland. That's a fantastic book.
Yeah, it's a wonderful book. Caroline in our design team has done an absolutely fantastic job with it. It's been 6 years in the writing, but really it's a whole lifetime's work from Chris Townsend, charting all the hills, glens, mountains of Scotland, fell by fell, mountain by mountain. It's just an absolute beautiful book.
And it's very, very cleverly done, because you pick a route that you're going to walk through, as I did when I bought it, and it's organised around the glens, but also the peaks alongside it. It just gives you enough information with a couple of paragraphs that really gives you a feel for what that hill is like as well.
Yes, and it also gives you information about all the options that you can do there as well, from climbing, ski touring, winter conditions, walking, Munros. It's all there, so there really is something for anyone who wants to spend time in the mountains.
Anybody looking to explore Scotland for the first time, or even those that have been there many times before, it's the starting book for planning a trip or an expedition, I think.
Yeah, it's really got something for everyone, whether it's your first trip to Scotland or whether you spend all your winters and summers and any free time there. It's just really has got something for everybody.
Now, I remember a couple of years ago when we first talked about this, it was in response to thinking about Kev Reynolds' book on the Pyrenees, and people were joking about whether Chris had really understood what he'd taken on, because these are the kind of things that you sit and use as works of reference during the winter when you're planning your trip. But there's another one in the pipeline, I think.
There is, yes. Kev Reynolds is currently working on another weighty tomb which covers the Swiss Alps. So we're hoping it's going to be available in the autumn. But as always with these books, it'll come when it's ready and it'll arrive when it'll arrive.
Well, I know there's an awful lot of people that follow Kev with a great deal of interest, and as well as love the Alps, so I'm sure that'll be a good sell as well. I think we should just echo the fact that Scotland book is a beautifully designed book. It should win an award, I think.
Yes, Caroline had an absolute joy laying the book out. If anybody's not seen it, we had the maps specially made for us. We spent an awful lot of money and time and effort making sure that the maps were correct, that we were doing Chris's photos justice, and just pulling it all together so that you could be at home by the fire, flicking through and still kind of have a wonderful experience from it.
Well, it's a thing of beauty, so if you haven't bought that book already, you should definitely rush out and buy it. You've just launched a new range of guides aimed at mountain bikers.
We have, and it's one that's particularly dear to my heart, as I'm the avid mountain biker in the office. So I've been plaguing Jonathan for a long time that we really should get a series together. And we've kick-started with a book that's right on the doorstep of the office. So it's a book to mountain biking in the Lake District. 24 routes. I've already been out, grabbed a copy of the manuscript before it was published and sampled a few routes. And it's been out for about a fortnight now, and we've got a South Downs book to follow in May. And Ian, who wrote our Lake District book, is currently out writing and researching a guide to the Yorkshire Dales. So I'm hoping to go out and help him with a few routes, as that's on the doorstep of where I live.
Fantastic. There you go. It's always a bit difficult on a mountain bike to be a bit more imaginative around route planning. So there you go. I'm sure those guides will work well. Now, last year, when we were in Birmingham and spoke to Jonathan on the Cicerone stand, the kind of googly book was Paddy Dillon's guide to Greenland. Trekking in Greenland, wasn't it? So where's Paddy going next? Anywhere else exotic we've not thought about before?
Well, Paddy's currently out on Lanzarote at the moment. He's writing and researching the last book in his Canary Island series. Paddy, if anybody doesn't know, is into Islamania, which is collecting islands. So he's got a number under his belt, and he's been working on a book to Sardinia as well, which we're going to publish in the autumn. And Paddy found it a real inhospitable place, but I think he had a wonderful time exploring the kind of uncharted area in the centre of the island.
And anything else to look out for over the next coming months?
Lots of all the usual stuff. We've got a beautiful book coming next month, which is called Trekking in the Alps. It's been written by a number of our authors, but Kev Reynolds has pulled it all together. It's another one of our slightly larger format books, and it covers 20 great inspirational treks in the Alps, as the title would suggest. So it gives you, if you're planning your first trip or not quite sure where to go next, it's a great one to pick up and get some ideas from. And then we've got lots of usual things. Paddy's Jersey and Guernsey guides are on their way, new South Downs book, and then lots of the usual international things that keeps us going.
Okay, well there you go. Thanks for that, Sarah. And as ever, just go to the Cicerone website, where all the details about authors, places are very usefully and beautifully laid out. And good luck with the next 12 months.
Thanks very much. Good to chat to you, Andy.
Well, that pretty well brings this one to a close, and my thanks to everybody involved, to Andy Simpson, the Mountain Rescue, to Barbara Palmer from Farmstay, and to Sarah, of course, Sarah Spencer from Cicerone Press, and not least to Andy as well for his contributions. We do have a few more interviews from the Leisure Show, which we'll bring to you next time, plus our roundup as well and our thoughts on the show itself. And, of course, as time goes by, we will be collecting more interviews, doing more trips, and sharing more information and knowledge and enthusiasm, if possible. Inspiration, that's the word I'm looking for. Some inspiration to get out more. But let's all make the most of this great weather while we can. Enjoy the sunshine while you've got it. And, well, get out there and enjoy life more. All the best now. See you next time. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. To hear more from our extensive free library, please visit the website at theoutdoorstation.co.uk.
You can now follow The Outdoor Station on Facebook, where we chat about each programme we produce, answer questions and discuss future productions. Why not join us there?
This podcast is produced and hosted by theoutdoorstation.co.uk.